I'm Marc Tex Wilson. I'm here today to resume a personal quest to photograph a live timber rattlesnake in the wild near the western New York and Pennsylvania state borderline. The search has led to Sizerville State Park, which is located just off of Route 155, approximately 6 miles north of Emporium, Pennsylvania. The venture was made a little deeper south, where rattlesnakes are much more densely populated. Today will definitely be the last rattlesnake hunt of the summer. If one isn't encountered today, the quest will have to be tabled until next summer. Hopefully today will be the day that the quest is finally fulfilled. So let's enter the park and take a closer look around. Just a few weeks ago, this picture of a black-faced timber rattlesnake crossing a road here in the park was sent to me by a cousin. Judging by the photo, it was around 4 feet in length, most likely a male since most adult timber rattlesnakes over 42 inches are males. Since the timing of this photo coincides with the dog days of summer, the odds are that it ventured a little further away from its den than usual in search of a mate. Upon arriving at the park to begin searching, I had the good fortune of speaking with a DCNR officer who relocated it safely away from the public. It was good to know that this big fellow was protected from harm. It crossed somewhere along this road. Upon entering the park off of Route 155 through the northernmost entrance, this public area is the first place it was seen, so the stop was made for the initial look around. A footbridge is seen ahead crossing the west branch of Collie Run. A pavilion built by the Civilian Conservation Corps during the Great Depression under Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal can also be seen. Since Collie Run is so close, a quick look will be taken just to satisfy curiosity. The water in this pool is fairly calm and clear. It's about 4 feet deep directly underneath the bridge. Some fish can be seen when looking very carefully. They tend to blend in well with the rocks. A closer look shows a fish about 12 inches long. Judging by its distinct lips, it's probably a sucker. A couple of smaller suckers can also be seen near it. A fourth fish will be seen swimming around more actively. This one might actually be a trout. While reading about the park in advance of today's visit, the website stated that there are brown and brook trout in here. A quick sweep will now be made downstream. These are exactly the type of small streams that I enjoy fishing in the middle of summer. The park is only about 386 acres and is known for its white pine and hemlock trees. Many of these were planted by the Civilian Conservation Corps. The area ahead will get investigated before going to the Environmental Education Building to get a park map. A closer look at the pavilion reveals the signature stone masonry that was prominent during the years of the Civilian Conservation Corps. This craftsmanship is always impressive to look at. Admission to the park for hiking and picnicking is free. The log ahead is where I most expect to encounter a rattlesnake. They like to lie on top of these to bask, or coiled up beside them on the ground, waiting in ambush for a mouse, chipmunk, or squirrel to run across it so they can get an easy meal. You never want to just step over one of these without first taking a careful look around. Another potential hiding place here is within the exposed roots of some of these trees. That spot ahead looks really promising. It's still fairly early in the morning and the air is cool. The odds of seeing one out in the open right now are pretty slim. A closer look into this cubbyhole reveals nothing. They will generally still be somewhere sheltered until it warms up a little bit more. Ideally, that place is back in their den. If they're unable to get back to their den or get somewhere underground, these types of places are better than nothing. At least they provide cover from predators and the elements. A closer look here also reveals nothing. This hole in the ground is about 12 inches in diameter. Since a stream is nearby, it's likely flooded and frozen during the winter and wouldn't make a suitable hibernation den. But the 55-degree Fahrenheit temperature down there would still make it a good temporary shelter, especially when it's warmer than the nighttime surface temperature. This is the park office, which is located at the southernmost entrance to the park. As a scan is made across East Collie Run Road, a snack bar will eventually appear in the picture. Behind it and hidden from view is a public swimming pool. The scan will continue across the parking lot to the Environmental Education Building, which is where we are heading. And there it is, hidden behind the bushes and the trees. Maps are also available at the Information Center seen ahead. There are 5 hiking trails in the park, and a park map will be handy to reference while out there searching on them. Upon entering the Environmental Education Building, some impressive taxidermy will be seen on display. Most of these creatures are indigenous to this area. Some of them include a hawk, a beaver, an osprey, some squirrels, some bobcats, some owls, a white-tailed fawn, some ring-necked pheasants, a coyote, a turkey, a grouse, a mink, a pair of elk antlers, a black bear, and a few others that were left out. An aquarium contains a mounted timber rattlesnake, which will be viewed more closely after the sweep around the room is completed. A timber rattlesnake is fairly stout. A full-grown male can grow as long as 6 feet in length, but this specimen is only about 3 to 4 feet long. Of the 33 known species of rattlesnake, only the eastern diamondback is bigger. The western diamondback is comparable in size. The triangular-shaped head of the venomous snakes in the pit viper family is obvious here. Notice how much wider the head is than the neck. This is the way that I envision seeing one lying on top of a log or crossing a trail ahead. A closer look at the tail shows that most of the rattle has broken off, but there are still 2 buttons left. The material that they are composed of is very similar to our fingernails. It's normal for pieces of the rattle to break off with time. That's partially why the age of the snake can't actually be told by the number of buttons on the rattle. Another is that juvenile rattlers may shed 3 or 4 times in their first year of life. A new button is created with each new shed. This video segment came from the annual snake hunt in Cross Fork, Pennsylvania last year. This big fella may be up to 25 years old, and there's only a few buttons left on its rattle. The older and bigger that they get, the less frequently that they shed. The buttons will break off faster than they regrow. Lastly, the rattles are actually hollow. That amplifies the sound as the tail is vibrated, similar to an acoustic guitar. And now it's time to get back to work. Nady Hollow Trail is about 1.5 miles long. Our current elevation is about 1,200 feet above sea level. This hike will entail some steep climbing to about 1,900 feet. Hopefully, there will be very little human activity ahead, and some open rocky areas will be encountered where a snake might be found openly basking. While progressing forward, you will occasionally notice yellow paint on the trees along the way which marks the trail. This climb is a lot steeper than it will look on video. The terrain looks like excellent habitat, but the steep hillside isn't easy to walk around on when off of the main trail. Plenty of fallen logs are scattered along the way. Many stops will be made to observe them and the ground around them for signs of life as they are encountered. The first landmark has been encountered. The main trail continues forward, but a shortcut trail leads to the left and follows the hillside parallel to the other end of the main trail. The shortcut avoids any additional climbing. This area is surprisingly loaded with red oak trees. Several areas that were littered with acorns, both old and new, were encountered. There's plenty of vegetation for chipmunks, squirrels, and white-tailed deer to feed on out here. Although looking for rattlesnakes, these hikes can also double as an opportunity to scout for a good area to deer hunt in. Where there is a food source, there will be game to be hunted. The size of this big log was noticed first, then the break in the middle of it, revealing that this log is hollowed out, was then seen, so it was worth leaving the main trail for further investigation. A little sunlight is also peeking through the foliage to warm it up. Hollowed out logs are a haven for many forms of wildlife, but no snakes were noticed here. These shells or husks were noticed a little further up the trail. They are old, but something obviously cracked them open to eat the nuts. I'm guessing that these are hickory, but don't know for sure. I can't identify the bark on the tree ahead, but the nuts appear to have come from it. After all that climbing, the terrain has finally leveled out. We must have finally reached 1,900 feet. The trail has grown in and doesn't look like it's had a lot of traffic. It would be very easy to walk right by or step on a rattlesnake in its high grass and ferns. A rattlesnake doesn't always rattle if you get too close to it. They realize that a very large and potentially dangerous creature is present and don't want to be noticed. They will often lie still if they sense that it will just pass by without bothering them. They don't want to waste any energy or venom on a creature that is too big for them to eat. They are actually very docile and non-aggressive. You have to practically step on one or handle it to get bitten, and that is done out of self-preservation. All living things just want to keep living. The trail ahead is starting to open up. Just as an illustration, the snake handler at Crossfork is walking around in the snake pit with nothing more than a pair of steel-toed boots on as protection. He is well within a strike radius of many of these rattlesnakes and is still not getting bit, even when touching them with his foot. Although this fella is scared and feeling threatened as seen and heard by the rattling, it's actually looking for a non-existent way to escape danger. The handler really has to torment it to entice a bite as its final act of self-preservation. These creatures aren't the evil villains that television has made them out to be. And now back to the hike. This area is a little more dense with foliage than expected, with no rocky open areas encountered so far. Even though timber rattlesnakes are very non-aggressive, a pair of snake-proof chaps sure would be nice. Mother Nature is very unforgiving. To get hurt or bitten out here could be fatal. The trail has just turned about 90 degrees off of the main path on the top of the hill. It's now heading north and is starting to descend. This is near its halfway point. Amazingly, no other hikers have been encountered so far. This trail does take a lot of effort to walk, while the other trails in the main park are shorter, fairly flat, and much easier to walk. Despite the lack of human activity, these woods have been fairly quiet so far. Only a few chipmunks have been seen or heard all day, and it's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The lack of small game activity is a good indication that there is a natural predator present to keep the population down. A steep descent has started to become more gradual as the hike continues. Another landmark has finally been encountered. This is where the shortcut passed up earlier will merge with the main trail. It will loop back to where the hike originally started. Since the trail looks fairly grown in, the main trail will be followed forward downhill. Nady Hollow Run is a small stream that has dried up. Its bed can be seen in this ravine. The hike is about 80% completed at this point, and the terrain has flattened back out. The dried up stream bed is the only rocky area encountered so far during this hike, but no snakes were seen upon further investigation. Finding snakes is often proving to be easier said than done. Even when looking in areas where the odds of finding one are greater, it's still not easy. Another landmark has finally been encountered. This is where Nady Hollow Trail merges with the campground trail. This trail was also followed to Fee Hollow Road and back. Although much flatter and easier to walk, there wasn't anything noteworthy about it. The campground trail followed the west branch of Collie Run for about half of a mile, and now we will continue forward. The main park road where this hike originally began is getting nearer as the hike is almost completed. These beech nuts were noticed shortly after passing the last landmark. Yet another valuable food source for many species of wildlife has been found. This should definitely be good hunting grounds. The bridge ahead leads back to the main park road and the hike is finally over, but the search will continue on the Sizerville Nature Trail. Upon reaching the bridge, these undercut banks along Collie Run and the exposed roots were noticed upstream. This area looks like excellent cover. Snakes in general can usually be found near water since small game to feed upon is usually more abundant there, so a little further investigation was needed. The exposed roots are an unfavorable challenge. It would be very unwise to reach near with the bare hands or to stick a head in there for a better look around. The flashlight on a pole is a much safer option. This undercut bank actually extends further back than could be seen using this method. For a moment, it sounded like some rattling was faintly heard, but the sound of running water muffled it out. This feels like the closest that I've ever been to fulfilling the quest. As badly as a filming opportunity is desired, it's not worth doing anything stupid and getting bitten. A noteworthy information center can be seen ahead to the left. It's too bad that defeat had to be accepted this time, but it is what it is. There are some really interesting rattlesnake facts on display here, most notably that it's illegal to capture one or kill one without a special permit. Education is the key for us to coexist peacefully with these creatures. Although many of us are prejudiced and narrow-minded, there are also many who can still be convinced otherwise. More of these in areas where rattlesnakes are present would be very helpful. As the walk is made southeast along the main road back to the truck, a quick sweep will be made of the west branch of Collie Run before heading to the Sizerville Nature Trail to resume the search. Some nuts were found here on the ground. I don't know if these are hickory nuts or pig nuts, but they appear to have come from this tree. Once again, the bark is not recognized. The Sizerville Nature Trail has finally been reached. It's located just a few hundred yards uphill from the main park right off of Route 155. This is a 3-mile loop that also climbs to a similar 1,900 feet in altitude. It does so more gradually. It's much easier to hike on. The information center ahead offers some impressive maps of the Elk State Forest. The gate behind it is one end of the loop. The other end of the loop will be entered in this direction. Only a few highlights from this hike will be featured in the video. This trail is not actually a part of Sizerville State Park. It ventures through the Elk State Forest which neighbors it. The terrain here looks very similar to Nady Hollow Trail that was just explored. Naturally, a few flat rocks were flipped over along the way looking for any species of snake to film, but very few of these were encountered. About halfway through the hike, some rocky areas were encountered on the flat hilltop just off of the main trail and explored. A little sunlight was peeking through the canopy, so there was some hope of finding a snake openly basking up here. But there's been a tremendous amount of chipmunk activity too, which may be a very bad sign. Ironically, not a single hiker was seen out here today. If there are any snakes here, there wasn't anybody here to spook them before us. That was also true of Nady Hollow Trail. This area wasn't quite what was hoped for, but it was the best snake habitat that we encountered all day. Some cracks and crevices ahead will have to be explored. The hike is nearing its end. We're on the southernmost side of the hill and descending in elevation. The southern side of a hill gets more exposure to the sun, so this is where I'd most expect to encounter a snake if the terrain was just a little bit more helpful. To no avail, one last crevice was explored before finally throwing in the towel and going home empty-handed for the day. The fail once again has been very disheartening. Route 155 can be seen through the trees as we are almost back to where it all began. Although the day was a failure, it was still an enjoyable day out in the woods. The truck can be seen ahead. Before closing out this video, a final look will be taken at one of many fine specimens seen at Cross Fork last year. What good is a snake hunting video anyway without any snakes to feature? Hopefully these magnificent creatures will still be around in another 100 years for other outdoor enthusiasts to enjoy seeing as well. We will have to make some serious changes for that to become a reality as their population continues to decline. once again, no rattlesnakes have been encountered, but it hasn't been due to a lack of effort. Although this area is notorious for them, the rocky terrain that was sought after to find one openly basking was never found. Instead of the rattlesnake hunt that was intended, today turned into a long series of hikes through the woods. The quest will be continued next summer, and the next search area will have to be determined later. Hopefully the quest will finally be fulfilled then. There will certainly be a very long winter ahead to think about it. I'm Marc Tex Wilson. Thanks for watching.